Welcome to the Intrazone Roadmap Pitstop August 2020 edition. This is a bonus monthly show that answers that burning question in your mind. What is rolling out now for SharePoint and related technology in Microsoft 365? I'm Mark Cashman, Senior Product Manager on the Microsoft 365 marketing team, here to help set the ongoing record straight. This month, I talk with Lincoln DeMaris, a Principal Program Manager on the SharePoint team focused on all things Microsoft lists. I talked with Lincoln about the state of the list rollout, how it evolves from what we know of as SharePoint lists, and we discuss some of the early feedback and tackle some of the most commonly, frequently asked questions. You know how we love us some FAQs on the Intrazone. Consider this the message center for everyone. August literally zoomed by and brought some nice nuggets of innovation, some to help you get back to school, some to help you stay more informed, and have new ways of keeping sharing and staying connected better. This podcast is your 30 minutes to stay informed and ahead of the ever-curving Microsoft 365 roadmap. So let's start with employee engagement. The first item is we now have SharePoint site templates for education. These are for schools and universities made available via the Microsoft Lookbook. Each brings together news, events, highlighted content, quick links, and more, all pre-configured and designed with the specific scope and audience for a variety of education scenarios. Here's a quick highlight of each of the 4 templates. First one, the school homepage. This is a central institution-wide landing experience for students and staff to showcase the latest happenings and important resources. The next one is the staff homepage. This is a dashboard for staff members with time-saving links, documents, and calls to action. It is designed to be used with a staff team or a professional learning community team in the Microsoft Teams for Education. The next one is the class homepage. This is a dashboard for a class with resources, updates, learning content, and it's designed to be connected with a class team in Microsoft Teams for Education. There's a great blog by my peer, Debjani Mitra, in the SharePoint community blog, and I'll absolutely have a link so you can go read more about it and install those site designs as sites within your educational tenant. The next area of improvement is we're leveraging the Azure CDN for caching of SharePoint and OneDrive videos. We're pleased to introduce and improve support for videos, which means you'll get a better streaming performance for videos that you put into SharePoint and OneDrive. Videos that are accessed often will be streamed from the Azure CDN that's closest to the user to optimize the playback experience. At all times, the data does remain within Microsoft 365, so your compliance boundaries do not change. This is also a great area for growth, just to tease the future a little bit, that paves some of the innovation that we're bringing soon. So stay tuned to this space when you think of caching videos and how that can improve in the future. The next is an element that we've talked about a lot in terms of raising awareness around a deprecation that we're bringing to the cloud or removing from the cloud, which is that we're retiring the SharePoint 2010 workflows. Since the release of SharePoint workflows, we've worked hard to evolve how workflow orchestration not only encompasses SharePoint, but all the productivity services that you use within Microsoft 365 and beyond. And with our continued investment in Power Automate as the universal solution going forward for all workflows, we are moving to retire SharePoint 2010 workflows. The timing on this is starting earlier part of this month, August 1st. The SharePoint 2010 workflows will be turned off or are being turned off for any newly created tenant. And starting November 1st, 2020, we will remove the ability to run or create and or execute SharePoint 2010 workflows from existing tenants. SharePoint 2013 workflows do remain supported, although are turned off by default for new tenants starting November 1st, 2020. We recommend customers move to Power Automate and other supported solutions, and we have a lot of information for admins to learn how to use the SharePoint Modernization Scanner tool so you're aware of what workflows you have, and to review the guidance to migrate from classic workflows into Power Automate workflows. So a lot of guidance, a lot of resources, and we're really wanting to make sure that we continue to raise awareness of the move away from SharePoint 2010 workflows. Next is a great offering for those that like to keep track of what's happening in your SharePoint site. Now you can download the SharePoint site usage data into Excel. Site owners from the site usage page will be able to export their site's 90-day usage data into an Excel report. You can then build out a process that works for you per your preferences or any governance requirements that you have in place to download the data on a recurring basis and build out the analysis that you desire in Excel. And of course, if you know what you're doing, you can take it beyond and visualize that data again on an ongoing basis in Power BI. A lot more documentation here, a really exciting feature for those that need to keep track over time of what's going on in your site. Before we move to chat with Lincoln about lists, I did want to call out 2 recent summary blogs that are very much for admins or for people that are building out the environment to optimize it or to maybe move a lot of content into the cloud, into your Microsoft 365 tenant. So these 2 blogs add a little bit more context. The first blog is to help you understand all of the migration capabilities to migrate your content into Microsoft 365. This is an all-inclusive blog with a lot of links to go learn more and a new infographic that just helps you consume kind of the art of the possible. The second one is to help uplevel the agility of the cloud. This one is titled Agile IT Management of Your SharePoint-Powered Intelligent Intranet. And this highlights 4 recent capabilities that help you to basically respond to a lot of business change so that you can have that reflected in how your SharePoint sites are, or for the needs of those changes, how they can more easily be updated to adjust to that change. So a couple of new resources to really uplevel the ways that you can migrate to the cloud and that you can be agile and bend to the changes that are brought by the business so that you can stay at pace or even stay a little bit ahead. Let's take a pause now and chat with Lincoln to learn more about where we are with Microsoft Lists as we've started the rollout and continue to broaden both the rollout and the feature set that we're bringing into Microsoft 365. So now you've heard a bunch of things that are rolling out from employee engagement perspective. We'll start to turn the corner into teamwork. And a big aspect of teamwork that we've recently introduced is Microsoft Lists. And with us today is Lincoln DeMaris, who is our principal PM manager for all things Microsoft Lists and a friend of the show because he's been on before. Lincoln, welcome back.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Before we go and make too many assumptions that just the whole world knows who Lincoln is, can we get a quick primer on your current focus and maybe that little history, knowing that our audience is very SharePoint oriented, where your roots are and how you got here?
Yeah, my name's Lincoln DeMaris, and I've been at Microsoft for about 14 years now. In my career, I've worked on SharePoint, ECM, document libraries, team sites. I've worked on OneDrive for Business, but right now my focus area is on Microsoft Lists.
So you're making tracking information a wonderful experience, and it's an evolution. So are you evolving? You feel like you're evolving as well?
Oh, absolutely. Every day I wake up, I'm stronger than the day before. And I like to think SharePoint Lists is just kind of the same way, following in that vein.
Okay, well, let's get some proof points then. I know a lot of people are going to be interested in what we've shipped recently. We call it Microsoft Lists, but we want to break it down. So we've shipped a lot recently, a lot of important updates, a lot of new technology. Can you get us caught up on everything that's rolling out with Lists overall?
So at Build, we announced a whole bunch of really exciting things coming to the world of SharePoint Lists. We announced the arrival of Microsoft Lists, which is a new app to help you start working with lists and get back to all the lists that you've already been working on. We talked about a bunch of really exciting improvements coming to lists in terms of how you get work done together. The ability to comment in a list, better editing experiences in lists, more view types like gallery and calendar, improved Teams integration, tons of really awesome stuff. The interesting thing there is similar to how we roll out all features across M365, these features aren't going to all come together. In the interest of getting you features when they're ready, we ship things individually. So right now, we're hard at work shipping the Lists app. So if you are in targeted release, you should be seeing very shortly the Lists app appear in your M365 app menu. And when you click that, you get taken to the Lists home experience. And then from there, you can click New List and create a list from one of our exciting new templates. And so that's a package of functionality that we are in the process of rolling out now. We've also been, ever since the beginning of the year, we've been rolling out performance improvements and usability improvements to editing lists in the grid. And so if you use Quick Edit, you should already be seeing a bunch of improvements come down the line, and there's a bunch more coming. Some other features that we've talked about, like calendar views or gallery views or rules, that stuff is still sort of internal only and will start rolling out soon. But all of that is on our roadmap.
I was going to say, for anybody that really wants to look at a specific feature that they're aware of or they just heard you talk about, you can always go out to the Microsoft 365 public roadmap. It's linked to in this companion blog, and we'll talk about it here. All of the Microsoft Lists items are on the roadmap and clearly identified, so easy to find. But I think it's important to hear what Lincoln was sharing around targeted release as far as where are we at right now. And if you have questions around what targeted release is, please reach out to me. I love to identify so people know what that means. It's a specific choice that customers can make. We've started to roll out some of the new components, the new List Home experience, the List app in Microsoft 365, which brings along that new creation experience and the templates.
That's right.
Off of that, what I'm really interested, and I think a lot of our listeners are also interested, is what do people think so far? What questions are you seeing, or what's the feedback to date on just those components?
Quite frankly, the feedback that we're getting is very positive. I'm thrilled to hear how excited longtime Lists users are to see sort of a heightened pace of innovation in this space. I'm also hearing organizations be thrilled that the new Lists home experience makes it easy for brand new people who aren't today really inundated with lists, makes it easy for them to get started and realize kind of the benefits of the power of SharePoint lists. And so we're hearing a lot of really positive feedback and reinforcement, and that's super exciting for the team. One area where people are really excited is the area of templates. So people love that we're bringing back to the world of lists the ability to start from a prefab template that brings along default schema, views, formatting, something that helps optimize for a particular scenario right out of the box. But a lot of customers that I talk to are really excited more for the future of this than anything else. They're saying, hey, I really love that you brought back templates, but I really need the ability to control templates to only show things that are specific to my organization. So customers really want the ability to find their own templates, control ordering of templates, which ones show up at the top, determine which ones are shown to which people, because not everybody should have the same list of templates, and so on and so forth. I want to reassure everybody that this is sort of top of our priority list on the product team right now. Giving organizations control over this list of templates, be able to define their own, control who sees what, I think is the top priority on the team, and you're going to be hearing a lot more from us in that regard soon.
My assumption, and I don't want to break any in terms of what you're planning, but the same way that we have enabled people to have site designs, page templates, and the ability to control and manage that from an IT side of things, following those patterns and obviously meeting what it is the customers are wanting, you're taking the feedback and certainly making it make sense to what they need and how other parts of the product work.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Us geeks know that lists templates are powered by the same tech that powers site designs. So you're going to be seeing kind of common patterns across all those different areas.
Gotcha. So anything else coming in that is sort of a like but or a like and?
Yes. Like but. One of my favorite ones is a lot of people are really excited about the introduction of personal lists. Playing into what I was saying earlier, it's great how the List app makes it easy for people to jump in and be productive quickly. Part of that is being able to create a list in your personal space that you can customize, configure, populate with data, and share only when it's ready. Think of that as sort of personal files in OneDrive, but in the list space. And so there's a lot of excitement about that feature, but there's also a little bit of nervousness. A lot of organizations have invested very heavily in a SharePoint information architecture. There's a groups and team sites and communication sites provisioned for different purposes. And there's a lot of work that goes into training people in organizations what types of content should be created in which sites. And so the power of SharePoint is really all about, hey, you give users the ability to create their own sites, but you can also create sites in advance and sort of promulgate a well thought through information architecture. A lot of organizations are worried that people are going to go nuts creating personal lists and are going to leave that information architecture behind. And I want to say that we're taking this feedback very seriously, and we're thinking of ways we can better strike a balance between giving users the freedom to put lists where they want, but making sure that users make good decisions in terms of putting content in the right sites that already exist for that purpose. People also talk a lot about how if you create a personal list, it seems a little bit stuck. We don't have any way of moving lists between sites today, and we know from experience that a really common lifecycle gesture is from the files world is you start personal and then you move it later to a shared space. And so we're working really hard on that as well, the ability to move lists between sites.
Yeah, a lot of what I'm hearing, and I know obviously from a platform perspective, ultimately, everything is stored in SharePoint. SharePoint is the content service platform that's making it all possible to not only your team to build off of, but for how people should think about future capabilities, that it's not impossible to build these, especially as you start to get the feedback. And maybe it's pervasive and strong feedback, so we certainly take that seriously. But knowing that there are ways to move objects, files, lists from a migration perspective, or from site to site, like we have for files with the move and copy, there are those patterns. And again, applying to lists and knowing that that's important. I think it's important to know that ultimately the content service is SharePoint. That's a very positive thing for security, compliance, for identity and access and privacy. But to map to those end user requests and feature feedbacks, I think is really important. And it's great to hear that you're listening.
That's right.
We put out a couple of FAQs in the main blog, and I just want to pause and just point people to, if you haven't digested the main blog that we put out when Lincoln and team started to roll out into targeted release, it's aka.ms/mslists/ga/blog, and I'll certainly put it into the show notes. So you might have heard some of these FAQs that others are asking, and we actually held an AMA where people asked a lot of questions, and there were a lot of great answers provided, and I'll put a link to that as well if you really want to digest a lot of the feedback that is coming from Microsoft about these common questions. But Lincoln, there was one that I saved for you for today because
I knew you were going to stop me.
I don't want to make
too easy so far.
I don't want to. You were guiding the conversation a little bit, but I want to pause and just kind of pull out one that I think we have a great answer for. But it is a concern. When you hear the question, what people are concerned about, and I'll be honest, I think it's a misperception, but I don't want to label it as such. But a lot of people are asking, from a SharePoint perspective, existing lists, do I need to migrate my lists? I've been using a list forever. I like how it's functioning. I like how it looks. I have a lot of people who are connected to it. Do I need to migrate my lists? I'm worried about that. How do you address that in the realities of what we've built and the realities of the moving forward with everything lists?
I'm thinking that maybe we need to write a white paper on this because it's a little bit of a nuanced topic. When I answer this question, the way that I like to say it is, if you have a bunch of SharePoint lists and you want to migrate them to Microsoft lists, what do you do? Well, I like to say you go to the pool, you grab a drink, you listen to some tunes, you read your favorite book, and you come back to your desk, and guess what? All of your lists are getting the benefits of Microsoft lists because, in fact, SharePoint lists and Microsoft lists are the same thing. There is no migration path. There is no difference. They are all receiving the same set of features. There really is no difference between them. So if you're excited about formats and rules and new view types and using List Home, and you're already working with lists today inside of SharePoint team sites, all of the stuff that we've been talking about is going to directly benefit you without having to do any migration work.
Gotcha. I knew that answer. I think it's important for people to know that we're not moving data around. We're really just exposing it in new ways with some new capabilities, new features, of course, a new home. If you've been using that, you know exactly what that is. It's an aggregate of all your lists, which makes it a ton easier to get from list to list. And one more point, though, I think it's kind of in the same vein of this question is I bring a list into Teams or I start a list in Teams. Does that move the content at all? When I bring an existing list, again, maybe one I've been using for years, and I now bring it as a tab in Teams, it's the same list, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can think of that as an iframe. In fact, it is an iframe under the covers. It's just a window into that content. There's no data in motion there. Everything stays put.
Very good. Well, I thank you for your time today. I know you and I are fairly engaged on a pretty important list these days, which is planning for Ignite. Across our whole team, we have about 120 sessions with a little bit more than that in the number of speakers that are working on collaborating on a list with titles, abstracts, recording times, and all the codes that we're going to get from the Ignite team. Any little hints or teasers for your session at Ignite that people should be clued in on? We maybe don't want to give anything away, but just what to expect from your session?
I think you can expect me to reiterate everything we talked about today. And there may or may not be a couple of exciting new announcements that we're going to make during that session.
Excellent.
If you want to stay on the cutting edge with lists, then I think you should tune in and check out my session.
Awesome. Thank you for your time today. Thanks for obviously the work on Ignite for that next push of reveal and, of course, landing a lot of what now people, especially by Ignite, a lot more people beyond targeted release, we hope will be able to engage with lists, give more feedback. But thank you for your time and thanks for all the work you do with lists.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Mark.
Lincoln is a great peer of mine as an engineering peer who is always very mindful about where we are in the particular rollout, specifically now talking about Microsoft Lists, but he's also very mindful to have an ear open to how are we doing. We had a great plan. We're starting to roll out that plan and execute on it, but always mindful to be able to listen, course correct, or at least provide more insights. So it's always great to hear from the source of somebody who really is thinking of making Microsoft Lists as easy to consume and, of course, easy going forward as we're starting to roll out. So there's awareness of what's coming for Microsoft Lists. And in that vein, I think it's time to talk about teamwork. It's time to share a list as easily and as powerful as if it were to be sharing a file. We are updating the list and list item sharing experience. This is something that we talked about coming as a part of Microsoft Lists when we first announced it back in May, and it's now starting to land. Site owners, members, and visitors will now see a share command when they're viewing a list, even when they don't have any list items selected. Site owners will be able to grant other users access to the list and are able to specify whether to give view only, edit, or full control permissions to the list. Other users, like site members or visitors, cannot directly grant other users access to the list, but they can use the dialog to send an approval request to site owners if the site is set up to allow access requests. This update also brings sharing links at the list item level, which I think is the most important innovation. When users select an individual item and click share, they'll see the same send link sharing dialog that exists today with new options, specifically the people in your organization with this link and anyone with the link options will be available based on the policy that your organization has configured. All of the sharing policies that you've configured for files will apply to list items. For example, if you set people in your organization with the link as the default link type, then that will also apply to list items. Similarly, if you've disabled or restricted anyone links, then those will also be disabled or restricted when users are sharing list items. So a great way to think about this common sharing experience that now spans content types, files, and lists. While users are browsing the list on a mobile device, they'll be able to upload an image, and this includes being able to take a photo with the device's camera. There's a great help article that articulates how to use the image column, but it's also a great article that shows all of the column types and their options. So it's a really great help article if you want to learn more about working with columns in lists or libraries. The last item in teamwork is moving files and keeping sharing intact. This really is the heart of collaboration, where it requires that the flow of work be maintained, especially from an access perspective, so not to break that. When you move a file to a new location in Microsoft 365, you will have the option to continue sharing the file from its new destination. A simple pop-up pops up and confirms or asks you to confirm the action that you want to take, which is to keep sharing and then keep moving forward. The new link matches the permissions just like the source location, and we send your collaborators an email that notifies them that the file has been moved. We do consider you to update some of your user training, and we've got documentation to help you there so that it's very clear not only that you can move or copy files around from site to site or from OneDrive to SharePoint team site or vice versa, team site back to OneDrive, but that you can keep that collaboration going by maintaining how people can access the file even when it moves, which means you keep sharing the file. Next up is related technology, and always closely related to SharePoint is Yammer. Yammer now has a new discovery feed. This is truly one superpower of Yammer, the ability to discover new communities and new conversations that help broaden your perspective. This feed is now the place that you can catch up on all the conversations happening around you, and especially in the communities that you belong to. One small note for admins, and this is a good note, is that you can select specific conversations to be featured conversations for a specific date. These conversations will be highlighted at the top of this new discovery feed for everyone until they've been read by the user, which then removes it from their particular view. It's a nice personalized experience, or as time passes or as new content gets highlighted. So a little bit more control for admins in the what everyone sees, but also a superpower for individuals to really discover based on what's happening around them in their Yammer communities. The next related technology is now you have access to Visio directly from within Microsoft Teams, specifically within a channel experience. As part of our commitment to make collaborating on Visio diagrams seamless, we've added the ability to have Visio as a tab in Teams, which I love as a pattern for describing things. Such and such content as a tab in Teams, and now we're bringing this capability to have it be Visio, a Visio diagram. This brings co-authoring on a diagram in real time, which means you can keep important processes at your fingertips, like giving your sales team a way to visualize specific steps to solve customer questions or concerns, or simply brainstorming on business diagrams like SWOT analysis, Venn diagrams, pyramid diagrams, and the like. Anything you can do in Visio, do it as a tab in Teams and make it even more collaborative. Great new article, and of course a help article that goes along with it so that you can figure out how to add Visio as a tab in Teams. I will tell you, super easy, super powerful. This next one is more specifically for your network admins, but I think it's really important for when you're working with content, specifically when you're enabling a lot of your users to work on content. You want it to be a great experience. And I just wanted to highlight an article that my peer John Miguel wrote specifically around connecting to Microsoft 365, really the principles that give you opportunities to see how we do things and opportunities for how you can adjust your network. We know that connectivity is one of the most critical decisions that you, on behalf of your customers, your users, can achieve to have a great performance and, of course, delight your end user experiences. So we've developed 4 network connectivity principles to help you evaluate your existing network architectures and to prepare or optimize readiness for connecting and using Microsoft 365, all the while with security and privacy firmly intact. So I will have a link in the show notes so you can see not only the quick summary of the 4 principles to optimize your traffic both in and out and how you connect in with keeping security intact in the modern way. There's a great blog, like I mentioned, but there's also a site called aka.ms/tune that resolves to a network planning and performance tuning site for all of Microsoft 365. So a great resource for network admins to be able to review and then take action to optimize on behalf of their end users. The last related technology is not something that you can get quite yet. I think the date is September 10th, so there's a little bit of a look forward, but it was a big reveal and there was a role in the reveal for OneDrive. So you might have seen OneDrive on the Surface Duo. I'll put a link in the show notes where you can see Panos Panay, our CVP for all devices, showcasing what you can do with OneDrive on the Surface Duo. He showed you one scenario where you can look at photos, and on one side you see the list of all your photos, and on the other side, using the spanning technology, taking advantage of the two screens, you can actually see the picture that you're looking at. You can imagine doing that with documents as well. That will help keep you in the flow, which if you've seen Panos give the presentation, you know he loves to keep you in the flow. So this link is great to see OneDrive on the Surface Duo, and if you have interest in learning more about it, or you're a little tickle in your brain, you're thinking about getting one, it is also a full video that shows you everything you can do and the way that they design it. Okay, time to close your eyes and visualize the future. Exactly 1 month from now, here are 2 teasers for what's coming soon in September 2020. Teaser number 1, there is a new integrate menu for lists so that you can see and use rules, created flows, and the ones that are available to you, and a lot more. It's a little bit of a better way to organize what you see when you think about extending your list to do more. Teaser number 2, you can now manage how long guests can have access to SharePoint and OneDrive in Microsoft 365, specifically around documents. A lot more around how you can manage that experience. And that's it. That's it with the teasers. We'll share more within the full SharePoint Roadmap Pitstop September 2020 edition next month. We've added a list of important resource links in the show notes and in the corresponding blog post on the Microsoft Tech community within the SharePoint community blog, giving you all that you need to get up to speed and stay ahead. I hope you've enjoyed this particular Roadmap Pit Stop, and now it's time to relax. You are all caught up. Please do send your comments. Please do ask your questions. We're here to put our and your best change management foot forward. Until next month, may your August be one to remember before the calendar turns September.